Welcome to the Power of One. Today we are going to speak about giving blood, the importance of giving blood, and how many lives you can save if you make that important decision to donate your blood. Today I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Erica Harris from Einstein Healthcare Network. Welcome to the show, Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris, why is giving blood so important?
Well, quite simply, blood donations save lives. These are people alive today who wouldn't be here if they had not had a blood transfusion. In fact, I'm actually one of those people. I had a blood transfusion this past year when I had my surgery, and I know that I wouldn't have been here without that blood transfusion. And I give blood transfusions to a lot of my patients who wouldn't survive without those.
That's important, and I am glad that you are here with us today.
Me too.
Now, tell me about people who are eligible to give blood, because not everybody can give blood, correct?
Right. So there's a very long list of criteria for who can give and who cannot give. So you have to be in a pretty decent state of health. You don't have to have perfect health, though. I think people think they have to have, be perfectly healthy. You cannot have certain infectious diseases. So if you have things like HIV or hepatitis, or other certain, parasitic diseases, those are reasons that you could not donate. You have to be at least 16 years old with parental consent. You can give blood without parental consent starting at age 17. So those are kind of the basic requirements. And then there's a minimum weight requirement as well in order to be able to give blood.
That's interesting. Why is there a weight requirement?
It has largely to do with how much blood volume you have. So if you're very small, you don't have as much blood to give in the first place.
Now, do you know daily how many blood transfusions take place at Einstein?
So across all of our hospitals, we have 3 hospitals in the Einstein system specifically. We give about 15 people a day blood transfusions. And so this amounts to about over 10,000 units of blood that we're giving in a given year. And that's a lot of blood and a lot of lives saved through blood donors. We think of giving blood in dramatic situations. So you come in with a car accident or you're stabbed or something like that, and you need a lot of blood given to you. We certainly do save lives in this way. But people also need blood during things like surgery, which is where I got my blood transfusion, and for chronic conditions, things like people with chronic kidney disease or sickle cell disease that need transfusions regularly, or for treatment. When people are undergoing treatment for certain cancers, they need blood transfusions as well. There's a lot of different reasons that people need blood transfusions. So there's a lot of reasons that we're transfusing that many people. And that's just 3 hospitals in the area. You can think of all the transfusions that are happening in our area and in, the country throughout a whole year. It's a lot of blood transfusions, a lot of lives saved.
Has there ever been a shortage?
So yeah. I would say yes. I'm so desperate to talk about the shortage. We are actually in one of the worst shortages that there has been, certainly in the last decade, not just at our hospital, but throughout the country. I don't remember it being this bad in my time practicing, and the Red Cross is banging the drum to try and get donors. There was actually in LA, one of the trauma centers, the UCLA Trauma Center, had to shut down for a couple hours because they did not have enough blood. Blood bank is an integral part of our trauma response, and if we don't have enough blood, we can't operate that. What this blood shortage means for us on a day-to-day basis, because it's affecting every hospital in this area and throughout the country, is that we really have to conserve blood. This affects patient care. This is something that affects everybody who may need blood, and all of our patients. Every day we get updates telling us what the blood shortage situation is. The chair of our department sends us out these communications, and that helps us plan for what our day will be like when we're taking care of our patients. Normally, we would just give a certain amount of patient space, if their blood count is low and they needed to have a certain kind of transfusion, we would just determine what we thought they needed. Now we have to do that with a mind for conservation. We may raise our limits of who needs a transfusion. So people who normally would qualify have to now have even lower blood counts before we will even start to give them blood, or we give them less blood with each transfusion. So if normally they would need 3 units, we might start with 1, just to give them the bare minimum to get them in a better place. They have to be a lot sicker to even start a transfusion. It might also mean that If there is a surgery where there is a significant chance of bleeding, where we know that they might need to have a transfusion, like the surgery that I needed, that would have to be rescheduled until we can have a better blood supply available for them. These aren't frivolous surgeries either that we are canceling. These are things that people need, things like joint replacements, cancer surgeries, heart surgeries. So it has a very significant impact on our day-to-day operations and the care that we're giving to our patients.
Wow. So 2 questions. I'll have more after this, but I gave blood and I'm A positive. And I was amazed to see how many lives I could save because I'm A positive, which is a rare blood type. So there are so many people that could actually use the blood that I donate. So speak about the types of blood, and has there been many people who have actually passed away waiting for a blood donation?
So there are several different blood types. There's A, B, you can be AB, which is a combination blood type, and then type O blood. So if you are type O, you can really only get O blood. If you're type O, you can give blood and anybody can get your blood. You mentioned being type A blood. So if you're type A blood, you can get A or O blood. So when you donate blood, you can actually save up to 3 lives with each pint of blood that you give, which is pretty significant when you think about it. That's a lot of lives saved with just a little bit of the blood that you're able to donate. So that is something that I think that people don't always realize the impact that they can have by doing something as simple as giving blood. I actually just talked to my best friend the other day, who is a regular blood donor, and she's type O blood, which is also a very valuable type of blood. That's the type of blood that we give in the trauma base. So when we have a trauma that comes down, we have the blood bank come as part of that trauma. And that's because if we don't know what your blood type is, we give you type O blood if we have to give blood right away. It's not just traumas, but when we have the trauma, the blood bank physically comes carrying a little red cooler, like a lunch cooler, full of O blood, because we can give that to anybody right away without knowing their blood type. So if you're in a bad car accident and you have heavy bleeding, we need to save your life, you get O blood until we can physically match your blood and figure out what your blood type is. So we give that blood to you right away. If you're having severe bleeding from other causes, people that have very heavy vaginal bleeding, that are having bleeding from, their gastrointestinal tract, those people sometimes require immediate blood transfusions as well. And that is the type of blood we give. So my best friend was telling me that she's type O blood and she used to give all the time. And it's just slipped her mind recently. And I think the pandemic's had a lot to do with that. And, she's been busy, and I think a lot of people are just kind of avoiding going out and going to doctor's offices and going to do things. And a lot of blood drives have been canceled. So we were talking about this issue because there's such a shortage, and she's like, I feel really bad. I'm going to go give blood now. And it was a great conversation to kind of get her thinking about that again, because there is such a need. And we're doing our best to work within the limits that we have. And so my hope is that nobody so far has died because we've not been able to give them blood. We do our best. We can do certain things. If people need blood, we can sometimes do, iron infusions to kind of hold people over until they need that. But certainly it's people aren't doing as well. They're not feeling as well when they need blood and can't get it. So I really, really want to encourage people to donate blood to help out. Sometimes it's a perfect stranger, but it could be you. It could be somebody in your family, and you just never know. It's hard to think of just, some random stranger that you're helping, but you never know who that could be. And when you or somebody you love might rely on somebody else's very kind gift of blood.
Now, all the blood is tested that's donated.
Yes.
And to make sure that there's nothing in that blood that would make that person sick.
Correct. The first thing that happens before you can even donate blood is you have to fill out a screening questionnaire. It's extensive. It talks about your medical history, your travel history, some, risk behaviors and that sort of thing. And then they actually screen every blood that you have to make sure that you're not severely anemic. If you're very anemic, which means you have low blood counts, then your blood is too diluted to give to other people. They test you for your blood type as well, because they want to know what blood type you have to figure out what blood type can be given to other people. And then they test for a variety of different types of infectious diseases that could make other people sick, things you may not even know you have. They test for different parasites, like I mentioned. So Chagas disease is one of those, viruses, things like hepatitis B and C, HIV, syphilis, Zika, if you guys remember the Zika virus, that's actually bloodborne. And so we want to make sure you're not passing that along. West Nile virus, things that can make other people sick. And like I said, you may not know you have these illnesses until you go for, a routine blood donation, and you may find that out. So it's important, to screen that blood. And that's what I remind people, that the blood donation process is very safe, but also I want to give assurances to people who need a blood donation themselves that it's not 100%, but it's very close to it, that we do a very good job of screening the blood supply. And that, like I said, I was confident in getting a blood donation myself when I needed it, because I felt like the risks for me were not sufficient to outweigh the benefits, and that I needed it, and that I felt confident in how the blood supply is screened.
Okay. I know when I gave blood, and I was just asking, I was like, okay, so do you guys test my blood for like everything? It was like, we tested for everything.
Yes.
I was so scared, Dr. Harris. I'm not like when I gave the blood that first week, and like my phone would ring. I was like, hello.
Yep.
Hello. I was so scared, but thank goodness I did not get a call.
It's a good way to know where you stand. Yeah, it is.
Yes. Like,
diseases you didn't know exist, they'll screen for.
Yes, that stuff. And then you think about your past, like, okay. Like,
where have I been? Yeah, exactly. But it's good. It's good to know.
Yeah, it was a good thing. Yeah, but I was scared out my mind. Here I am. Like, okay, I know. I get some free cookies, and some free crackers, and some orange juice, and I'm like,
it's a spa day.
Yeah. I was like,
it's a me time at the blood bank.
It was scary.
Yeah.
So now tell me something. Can people give blood that has had the COVID-19 virus, or say you're just getting over a cold, the flu, can you still give blood?
So I would say in general, we don't want people who are actively sick to be donating blood, just in part because we want you to be healing. And illnesses can have an effect on how much, what your blood is like. You're not likely, so COVID is not a blood-borne infection, meaning that you're not going to give somebody COVID through your blood. But that said, you shouldn't be at a blood bank giving blood while you have COVID, because you could spread it to other people, first of all. So you should be at a point where you don't have any infectious diseases while you're donating, mainly because we want your body to be in optimal health while you're actually donating. And we want your blood to be at, the best it can be. We don't want you to have any drops in your blood count that could affect the quality of blood that you're giving. And we want your body to be at a point where it can regenerate the blood that you're losing easily while it's not busy fighting off an infection. So give it one thing at a time to do. Let it fight the infection and then let it regenerate your blood. So I would say wait for a little while after you're recovering. And that's been one of the challenges during COVID of, the getting blood from people, is that there have been so many people who are sick that a lot of the regular donors have been sick and not able to donate blood. And now with Omicron, everybody in the world is sick at one time. So it's even harder to get people who aren't sick to donate blood. If you have, let's say, a chronic, well-managed illness, let's say you have like rheumatoid arthritis or a chronic heart disease or chronic lung disease, something that is not infectious, it's well managed, it doesn't mean automatically that you cannot give blood. It just depends on how well it's managed, if you're having symptoms and things like that. So if you're not sure, you could talk to somebody from the Red Cross. You could fill out a questionnaire and see if you might qualify to still give blood. But if you have these illnesses and you're having a lot of symptoms and you're not well, I would either talk to your doctor or just kind of look at the questionnaire and see where you fit in for that. But I would definitely avoid giving blood if you're not feeling well.
Right. And I can just imagine that there is a major blood shortage right now. Mm-hmm. People are afraid to come to a healthcare facility. Mm-hmm. People are afraid to leave their home because when you hear on the news, it's like COVID-19 ventilator died. You know what I mean? It just seems like it's so unsafe. What would you say to that person who's on the fence of going to give blood? Do you know if the Red Cross has changed any of their requirements, or if they actually go to people's homes because of the COVID-19 pandemic? What would you say to those people who are watching today that want to give blood but are scared to go to a healthcare facility?
I would say that in general, as a healthcare organization, the Red Cross is doing everything they can to keep donation sites safe and open. they are struggling with the same staffing shortages that everybody else is struggling with, which is part of why we're facing a shortage right now. That just like everywhere else, there's people out sick, there's people that have childcare issues that are not able to work. And so a lot of blood drives have been canceled. They're not able to staff them. This is happening at private institutions as well as through the Red Cross. So to my knowledge, I'm not sure if they're actually going to people's homes to, collect. I think that it's still a matter of trying to find your best bet. I think the most reliable bet is still to go to a testing center or to a collection center if possible, to find out one near your house if you are able to set up an appointment to go. You may be at that point around fewer people because it's not the same as a big blood drive where there's a lot of people around at one time. If you go to a collection center, when you have an appointment, maybe there's fewer people donating at any one time compared to a blood drive. But just like when you go to see your doctor, I try to drive this home to people as well. You cannot delay important primary care. You cannot delay important specialty care when you have, especially when you have chronic medical illness. Even during COVID, you have to maintain your health. You have to go do those things. You have to go to the dentist. You have to take care of your ongoing health maintenance. And so you do not absolutely have to give blood. Certainly, if you can, it is immensely helpful. But we recognize people's fears. We recognize that people are scared to leave their house in some cases. We recognize that people are leery about going and sitting somewhere for an hour or so, and that is asking a lot of people right now to do that. So we make it as safe as we possibly can. We do physical distancing. I imagine masks are required in these places that you're not allowed to enter without, it's a health facility. Just like you enter the hospital, you're expected to wear a mask. If you go to a blood donation center, you'd be, asked to wear a mask as well. They have always been very clean because they have to be, because they are, dealing with people's blood that will be going, to people who are very sick. So they've already had very high hygienic standards and very clean places to be. So it's not a place that I would worry about going to contract COVID. I go to the grocery store regularly, and I feel like that doesn't have the same hygienic standards as going to a blood donation center. And I feel like that would be a place that I would feel comfortable going. I've gone to, my doctor's appointments, and I feel safe there. I would feel safe donating blood as well.
Okay. Now, we're on the topic of the shortage. Has there ever been a time, and I know you're at Einstein, or even like say Temple, which is one of your neighbors, has there ever been a time where hospitals had to rely on other hospitals for some of their blood storage?
I'm honestly not sure about that. I know that we do work collaboratively throughout the city. I know that is something that, we coordinate our blood supply through the Red Cross. And I imagine that is something that we could do if we needed to do, especially in desperate times. I think that is, the blood is allocated across hospitals based on need and supply. But I don't know if that's ever actually happened. It's a good question.
Okay. Well, Dr. Harris, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. As always, you break everything down, again, so everyone can understand it. Giving blood is so important, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for joining me today, Dr. Harris.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to thank everyone who has donated blood. I want to thank everyone who will donate blood. Your important decision will save and can save so many lives. Peace and blessings.